With a new car and renewed spirits, we set off for one of the most popular tourist spots in Kenya, Amboseli National Park. There are good reasons why it is very popular. A view of Mount Kilimanjaro with elephants walking in front of it is one of those shots no photographer will resist taking. After about 3 hours, we reached the park, and to my disappointment, Kilimanjaro was not visible even a tiny bit. We drove around taking pictures of giraffes and lots of elephants. Amboseli National Park, even though it's a popular place, it is still a very good park to visit and you can do it in a day easily. We had entered the park from Namanga and we exited via Kimani Gate and continued south towards Lake Chala. The road to Lake Chala was terrible. There were sections that were recently washed out and had huge holes that can swallow a bus. The road is rough and narrow. It was already late and we ended our day in an Airbnb close to Lake Chala to make it easy to access it the next day. In the morning, we went for a short drive to the trails that leads to Lake Chala. Lake Chala is a crater lake that lies between the borders of Kenya and Tanzania. Most of it is on the Tanzanian side. When going up, there's a small section that divides Kenya and Tanzania, and so you can technically cross over to Tanzania illegally and make fun of that. The lake was magnificent in the morning with its clear waters. A few pictures later, we were off and started the journey even further south. The next stop was the Grogans castle, which was owned by a baron during colonial times, but is recently owned by the Kenyatta family. Grogans castle gives you a sense of opulence and glamour, and its setup is just fitting. It is situated on top of a hill overlooking plantations, which depending on which side of the world you come from will look spectacular or give you flashbacks of colonial times even though you never experienced it. After a quick breakfast, the journey continued further south towards Lake Jipe, another border lake. The lake was entirely covered in reeds, which made it hard to get a feel of it. We continued on to the Tsavo West Maktau Gate. Tsavo is another popular park with large herds of elephants. We drove around for a while and headed for the popular Mzima Springs. Here you could see the crocodiles in the water, and they have this enclosure which is underwater, giving you a good view of the fishes in the water. Our next stop was the Shetani lava flow. Here you could see the lava rocks that had dried after a volcanic eruption that took place only a century ago. Tsavo West is massive and needs a lot of time to explore. After a few hours, we went on to drive to Voi town, where we rested for the day, with plans of visiting Tsavo East the following day. Voi is not a very big town, and so we just passed through it on our way to Tsavo East National Park. We drove around Tsavo for about 5 hours, animal spotting and drifting across the grasslands and bushlands in the park. One interesting stop in the park was at the shores of the Galana. Here, you could see hippos and crocs lying on the rocks and very close to the shore. One other thing I was very curious about was the hill outcrop that seems to stretch for several kilometers. I have always been curious to know what it looked like at close range, but my curiosity wasn't filled. I still want to know how it looks from the top and what lies behind it. Therefore, that is an exploration for another day. We drove along the Galana River all the way to the exit, and from here we proceeded straight to Malindi town, aka Little Italy. It was still early enough to explore one more spot, and we headed to the Marafa Hell's Kitchen. People from the US will refer to this as a budget version of the Grand Canyon. Inside the Marafa Hell's Kitchen, temperatures can rise as high as 50 degrees during the day. The guide at Marafa did mention that the place is ever changing, with every rainy season because of the soil erosion that takes place.
The entire canyon now expands.
I see.
You see, it's moving that side.
Yeah.
So if you come here after 2 years, 3 years, you find everything here has changed. It's different.
Right.
Yeah.
He even mentioned in years to come, it will get to extend to where his home is, and he will have to move to another place. The place was particularly interesting walking inside and seeing the whole canyon. We drove back to Malindi town and ended the day in an Airbnb very close to the main town. Malindi is famed as Little Italy because it has several Italian joints and people from Italy love to vacation there. I still don't know why it has appealed to many Italians. If there is any Italian watching this video, please tell us why you love Malindi. The first stop was at the famed Vasco Da Gama pillar, which is a monument that has existed since 1498. It was good to see that the National Museums of Kenya did some renovation of the place. Paying to access Vasco Da Gama pillar also gives you access to the Malindi Museum. We did a calming walk along the beach heading towards the Malindi jetty, which has been standing for over 70 years and is a favorite spot for people from Malindi. Next was the museum. Inside the museum, you get to learn about the Swahili culture and lifestyle as you walk in the exhibition. After a few more rounds in Malindi town, we went west towards Mombasa and made a stop at the Gede Ruins. These are ruins that were inhabited with the Swahili people in the early 12th century, making them over 600 years old. It was interesting to see how people lived back then and the innovations like how they had underground tunnels which acted as air conditioning. We then continued to Mombasa and made a quick visit to Fort Jesus and Mombasa Old Town. You haven't been to Mombasa if you have never been to Fort Jesus. It's one of those spots where you have to visit, like a rite of passage. A walk in Mombasa Old Town is one of my favorite fun things to do while exploring the street food and coffee houses. Later on, we proceeded to the ferry crossing and continued to Diani. Diani is rated as Africa's best beach. I haven't been to other African beaches, therefore I can't confirm nor deny that claim. But walking along the shores is always relaxing. There are so many activities in Diani, therefore it is again a very popular spot for tourists and people who love water activities. Last stop for the day was at the Alibaba's Cave restaurant, which is famed for exterior decor. They had a dress code policy not allowing sleeveless shirts, which is a rule I kind of found to be bizarre, considering it's right next to the beach. But I guess their space, their rules. I didn't do a very good job documenting the foods we ate and sleeping places, but we mostly slept in reasonably priced hotels and Airbnbs ranging from $10 to $50. We were coming to the end of the trip on this day. We started the drive up north towards Nairobi. We made one stop at the Shimba Hills, which is just 50 kilometers north of Diani. Shimba Hills is said to have a very large number of elephants, which is a problem that spills over to creating human-wildlife conflicts. Elephants need large areas of land and they can be very destructive. It was therefore ironic though that I don't remember seeing any elephant on this day, but as it is with game drives, most things come down to luck. We exited the park after about 3 hours of driving and headed straight for Nairobi. At this point, Albert was technically a pro in driving our Kenyan roads, and we arrived in Nairobi late in the evening. I headed home and Jen and Albert booked a hotel close to the airport where they were going to do their COVID test before traveling back home in a few days. On this day, Jen and Albert called me to join them for a one-day drive back to Amboseli National Park. They only had less than 48 hours before they left Kenya, and so we were just maximizing time at this point. Remember when I told you that photographers love taking a picture of elephants with Mount Kilimanjaro as the background? We went to the park thinking we could get a picture of a warthog in front of Mount Kilimanjaro, because warthogs don't get much love. Unfortunately, Mount Kilimanjaro was only visible for about an hour, and by this time, we were not even inside the park. By the time we were inside the park, the mountain was covered with the clouds, and our goal of wanting to take a picture of a warthog in front of Kilimanjaro backfired. We drove around Amboseli for a few more hours, but then ended up spotting a hyena, which was quite spectacular. The trip finally came to an end for real this time. Personally, that was a trip of a lifetime and I was happy that I got to do it right in my own country. I can confidently say I have traveled to almost all corners of my country and see what it offers. This gives me the confidence that eventually, when I get to do my epic trip around Africa, I will be able to appreciate it even more as I get to explore far regions, new cultures, meet new people, and hopefully grow as a better human from all the travel. I still have a few locations in Kenya that I want to visit and explore, like Mandera, Okichogio, and even further south towards the Tanzanian border. I hope this video also gets to inspire you to travel. Get out there with any budget and visit a new town, a new park, a new beach, etc. It can be for a day or for a few hours. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, little travel builds up in the memories. As of this moment, Jen and Albert are back in the USA safely, and they're thinking of where they will go next, but meanwhile, they are currently shoveling snow from their driveway. In Nairobi, it was hot, but now it's raining, which rarely happens in February. Thank you for watching this far, and see you in the next adventure, because there is still a lot more to explore.